So hello everyone and very good afternoon. We have started succession. We have seen the types of succession, the stages in succession. So we have covered what is primary succession, secondary succession, autogenic succession, allogenic succession. So we have seen autotrophic and heterotrophic succession. So different types of successions, and we have also seen the different stages in succession. Now we are going to see examples of succession which happens on the land, and that is the xerox succession. So how a pioneer species will first occupy a new area on the surface of the rocks, and slowly it will modify the environment which becomes more and more suitable to next species. Okay, so there will be a series of steps. Different species will occupy the area, and ultimately a climax community will establish. There will not be any further change until an accident happens, like fire or something else. And in hydrosphere or hydrarch successions, we will see how a pond ecosystem or an aquatic ecosystem will be converted into a terrestrial ecosystem. So it will be converted into a woodland. Okay, so these two we'll see in the first half, and in the later half of the session we will try to complete nitrogen cycle. That is very important. Previously in the examination questions have been asked. So we'll be focusing on nitrogen cycle and carbon cycle. So these are the most important ones. Other sedimentary cycles like phosphorus, sulfur, they are not that important because they are not contributing much to climate change or anything. So mostly the nutrient cycles that are connected to the climate change, they are important from examination point of view. Okay, so in the notes I will give you those cycles, but we'll cover nitrogen and carbon in the class. We'll also see the water cycle or your hydrological cycle. Okay, it is very short one. So let us start today's session. So we'll start with lithosphere or xerox succession that happens on the land. Okay, sphere. So when I say sphere, so sphere is basically series of steps. Sequence की बात कर रहे हैं. Xerosphere is sequence of successional stages which occur on bare areas. So rocks की बात कर रहे हैं, bare rock surfaces which is deficient in water. तभी zer use कर रहे हैं ना, xerophytes. So it is happening on bare rocks which is deficient in water. So succession or a bare rock has some, these following steps. So we'll start with the first step where a pioneer species will occupy the area. Okay, so first step is pioneer stage, where crustose lichen. So lichens may be different types. So crustose lichen है, foliose lichen है, fruticose, अलग अलग type के lichens हैं. Okay, so lichen is the association of mutualistic association between algae and fungi. Okay, so both are benefited in this relationship. They cannot survive without each other. ये obligate relationship है. This is an obligate mutualism. So pioneer stage where your lichen, the spores of lichen, soridia बोलते हैं, the spores or soridia of lichen, which contains an algal spore covered with hypha of fungi. So this is a vegetative reproduction. So basically these soridia, they will reach the bare surfaces, or they are transported by wind or water, or they attach themselves to the surface of the animals. So any of the agency can transport it. So initially the pioneer species will reach the rock surface. So the rocky habitat is extremely xeric and hostile. Okay, only few organisms can survive in such condition. There is no soil, so plants तो grow होंगे ही नहीं, because plants they anchor into the soil and they derive the nutrients from the soil. So this is bare rock surface है, bare rock है, यहाँ पर कोई soil वॉइल कुछ नहीं है. So these conditions are very hostile conditions. Normally organisms cannot survive here. Only certain organisms they can survive such conditions. So there is no water, as the substratum does not absorb rainwater. There is no nutrient holding mechanism. Soil hota to nutrient hold kar sakta. So this is just bare surface of the rock, very hostile. There is no water, there is nothing, there is no medium to hold the water. So soil nahi hai yahan par abhi. Now the weathering will start. These rocks will break down into smaller fragments and weathering will start. So when these rocks they're exposed to sun and different agencies of the nature, slowly weathering will take place and these rocks will break down. So lichens they also enhance or speed up the process of weathering by secretion of certain acids. So organic acids secrete करके biological weathering. So certain acids are secreted by the lichens which help or enhance the process of weathering. Rocks will break down faster. So biological weathering भी हो रहा है, physical weathering भी हो रहा है, and chemical weathering also is happening. So when the water is reacting with the minerals of the rock, so chemical weathering is also happening. So physical, biological and chemical weathering, all the process will take place, and ultimately the rock will slowly break down into smaller fragments. So when exposed to the sun, the surface temperature goes very high. In such a habitat, only crustose lichens can become pioneer colonies. और कोई species यहाँ पर survive नहीं कर सकता. Only lichens can survive such conditions. They have the ability to tolerate dry conditions, desiccation, क्योंकि water absorb करने का कोई mechanism नहीं है. Just a minute. Okay, so there is no medium or mechanism to hold water. There is no mechanism to hold the nutrients. Soil nahi hai na. So only certain species, very hardy organisms, they can tolerate such conditions. So lichens is one of them. Okay, they only are the pioneer species in such conditions. So these lichens reach the bare rock through wind-borne sorida or lichen fragments or spores. So ultimately through wind or water or through animals they reach the bare rock surface. So lichens produce carbonic acid and other organic acids which has corroding effect or which will help in breaking the rock into smaller pieces. So it will enhance the weathering process. Okay. So lichens will occupy the area first. They will slowly enhance the weathering process and slowly change the or modify the environment. Slowly the rock will break down into smaller fragments and soil formation will, I mean, it is in the initial stages. So soil formation slowly starts. अभी thick soil ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. Rock धीरे धीरे छोटे fragments में break हो रहा है. Generally, species that you see is Rhizocarpon, Rhinodina, Lesidia, Lecanora. So these are some lichen species. So we know how the species composition changes, right? So first it is occupied by lichens, then slowly bryophytes will occupy the area. They will modify the environment which becomes favorable for herbaceous plants, then shrubs, and ultimately trees, woodland. So you have a climax community which is stable community that will ultimately occupy the area. So pioneer community is lichens. So these are series of steps where different species of your bryophytes, herbaceous plants and shrubs, they will occupy the intermediate. So they are the intermediate species. Seral communities, they are called as seral communities or intermediate communities. Ultimately, it will transform into a climax community. So It starts with lichens. So crustose lichen जो है, that is the pioneer community. Slowly crustose lichens, they will be replaced by foliose lichens. So crustose क्यों? Because they grow as a crust. Crust मानते हो? Crust. So it is a thin layer on the surface. कभी डोसा बनाया है? डोसा वोसा बनाया होगा तो कभी चिपक जाता है ना पैन पे डोसा. So this example came to mind because I'm from southern part of India, so we generally make dosa at home. हाँ, ब्रेड जैसे. सो कभी कभी ना वो, अगर आप उस पैन पे, अपार्ट फ्रॉम डोसा, इफ यू हैव ऑमलेट और समथिंग एल्स, सो डोसा नेक्स्ट टाइम जब बनाओगे तो प्रॉब्लम आता है, इट विल स्टिक. हाँ, वो जब डोसा बनाता, फर्स्ट डोसा, एक दो डोसा खराब हो जाता है, सो इट विल स्टिक. तो उस ना पतला सा जो थिन लेयर विल कम आउट व्हेन यू स्क्रैप इट with that I don't know what you call it, spatula जो होता है, उससे जब करोगे तो thin crust सा निकलता है. So it is in the form of a thin layer. So crustose lichen बोलते हैं. Then crustose lichen is the pioneer species. It will be slowly replaced by foliose lichen. Okay. So lichens में primarily you have three types. Okay, crustose, foliose and fruticose. Right. Foliose lichen में leaf like, they are leaf like. एंड फ्रूटिकोज में क्या होता है, दे आर स्मॉल ब्रांच लाइक. हाँ, ये नीचे ना एक सिंगल, देयर विल बी अ सिंगल स्टेम, ओके, फ्रॉम वेयर these branches will be arising. So these are, I mean, बताया था तुमको, caribou. Okay, so these reindeers in the tundra region, they feed on these lichen, they eat these lichens, right? So crustose lichen, it will be replaced by foliose lichen. All right. So second stage में क्या होगा, this crustose lichen will be replaced by foliose lichen. So those attached to the substratum at a single point or along a single margin appear as soon as little soil has accumulated. So your crustose lichen, जो initial pioneer species था, it will modify the environment, it will help in weathering process. Physical weathering is happening because of rain, because of temperature. The rock will be broken down into smaller fragments. Biological weathering is also happening because this organism, lichen, it also secretes organic acids, which will enhance the process of weathering. So ultimately, you see small fragments of rock will start to form, and slowly this lichen, it will also add organic matter. So lichen also dies, it will also die, and it will add organic matter to the environment. So you have mineral matter coming from the weathering of rocks, you are adding organic matter by the organism. When it dies, it will add organic matter. So slowly you will see very thin soil layer starting to form. धीरे धीरे अब bare rock से thin soil layer has accumulated. A very little amount of soil, it has started to accumulate. Okay. Now they slowly replace crustose form. So foliose lichen will replace the crustose lichen. They are leaf like. Okay, is they foliose क्योंकि leaf के जैसा दिखता है. Okay, so these expanding leaf like thallus, thalli, फंगस का जो तुम्हारा mycelium, उसको thalli बोलते हैं. They may completely overshadow the crustose lichen. So foliose lichen will overshadow, it will not allow the sunlight to reach your crustose lichen. So slowly, without light, foliose lichen, they are covering the crustose lichen. So crustose lichen तक light नहीं पहुंच पा रहा है. So foliose lichen is modifying the environment. It is making the crustose, it is making it difficult for the crustose lichen to survive, because this algae, it requires sunlight to photosynthesize. So foliose lichen is overshadowing the crustose lichen. Ultimately, the crustose will die. They will be replaced by foliose lichen. So above the foliaceous invaders, water has better chance to collect and to be absorbed. अब देखो, पहले जो तुम्हारा rock surface था, it was very dry. Dry conditions were there because there was no medium or no substratum to absorb moisture. Now conditions have become a little bit favorable. Okay. So what is happening? The crustose lichen, it has helped in weathering of the rock. So rock is broken down into smaller fragments, and it is also adding organic matter. So it has modified the environment a little bit. Okay. So they are replaced by foliose lichen. So foliose lichen, they grow a little big compared to your crustose lichen. So they grow, they are not exactly in the form of a crust, so they are leaf like. Okay, so leaf like, and they cover the crustose lichen, so they overshadow, so they will not allow the sunlight to directly reach the crustose lichen. So ultimately, without the light, they will not be able to photosynthesize, and slowly the crustose lichen will die. After that death, they are adding organic matter also. Now slowly soil layer is starting to form, and it can absorb little bit moisture, so it has become more favorable for the other species. Crustose lichen will be replaced. Now wo jo pehla pioneer species tha, it is now gone. Environment has modified, it has become very difficult for the crustose lichen to survive in this kind of environment. So wind and waterborne lichen fragments and dust particles lodge, and humus is more rapidly accumulated because the oxidation rate or your decomposition is slow. क्योंकि ज्यादा मॉइस्चर होल्ड नहीं कर सकता है, it is relatively still dry, so organic matter will accumulate. Even dust particles, हवा से जो dust particles है, they will be trapped, and slowly you see sedimentation will happen. So your dust will accumulate and organic matter is added, so soil layer is becoming thicker and thicker. Okay, so acid produced by living and decaying plants are constantly eating further into the rocks. So further weathering process is speeded up. So weathering process अभी भी चल रहा है. So these carbonic acid that is produced, carbonic acid कैसे produce होता है? CO2 plus water, CO2 produced by the organism and water through rain, or water when it is reaching the soil, it will dissolve some of the atmospheric carbon dioxide also. So carbonic acid. So carbonic acid is a, I mean, it is a better solvent than water. तो ये rocks को जल्दी degrade या weathering होने में help करता है. So it is better than, it is faster than the normal water. Carbonic acid, it is slightly acidic. So crustose to foliose जो change हुआ है, it is because of the change of habitat. Indeed, it is possible that change from crustose to foliose lichen is change of habitat, क्योंकि environment बदल गया है वहां पर. अब crustose lichen के लिए favorable नहीं है environment वहां पर. Then the environment is no longer favorable for crustose lichen. It is modified that foliose lichen, it can grow comfortably here. Okay, so foliose lichen generally examples कौन सा है इसमें? So dermatocarpon, parmelia, umbilicaria. So these are foliose lichen which follow crustose lichen. So crustose, then foliose. Now next group of plants that occupy the area, they are called as moss. Okay, bryophyte. Bryophytes are moss. They are lower plants. Okay, so as soon as sufficient amount of soil and moisture has accumulated, तो soil कैसे form हो रहा है? Weathering of the rocks, and the crustose lichen that is growing, it will collect some dust also. Crustose lichen will die and it will add organic matter, and slowly a thin layer of soil starts to form. So as soon as sufficient amount of soil has accumulated in the minute cracks and crevices, or if there are any depressions on the rock, so उन depressions में soil accumulate होना शुरू हो जाएगा. The next species that will occupy the area is called as moss. ये आता कहाँ से? So mosses, they also reproduce through spores. They don't produce seeds. Moss is a lower plant. They reproduce through spores. So उनके spores भी हवा से आते हैं, and these they will settle down once they reach the area. So if they have enough moisture and soil, these spores will germinate and give rise to moss. So common species are Jeremia, Polytrichum, Tortula. So these are some of the mosses that will occupy the area next. So they may have migrated long distances by wind blown spores. So they are caught by minute amount of soil. So soil में वो आके settle हो जाएंगे spores and they will germinate here. Along foliose lichens, they germinate in the thin soil layer, whatever is formed. अब देखो, mosses and foliose lichen both are growing in the same area. Obviously दो species अगर same area में grow हो रहे हैं तो competition will be there, they will interact. So their rhizoids, so bryophytes का जो roots है उसको rhizoids बोलते हैं. Their rhizoids will compete with foliose lichen for water and nutrients. So lichen को भी nutrients and water चाहिए, bryophytes को भी nutrient water चाहिए. There is competition, but bryophytes, they are erect. Foliose lichen, it will grow horizontally. ये spread होता है, ये vertically grow नहीं होता foliose lichen. But here mosses, they have erect stem. So they are very small, but they have erect stem. As you can see here, they grow to certain height. So the erect stem of mosses often exceed the height of lichen. So lichen, foliose lichen से थोड़ा height में बड़ा होता है. Okay. So mosses can also tolerate desiccation. So their ability to tolerate desiccation is similar to that of lichens. So they are competing and they have similar ability to tolerate desiccated conditions. So competition बहुत severe है. अब इन दोनों में से जो better होगा वही survive करेगा. So mosses may sometimes precede foliose lichen. In some cases, crustose lichen के बाद directly mosses भी आ सकते हैं without this foliose lichen stage. क्या बोला था हमने? Crustose, foliose lichen and moss. Sometimes without this intermediate stage, directly crustose के बाद mosses भी आ सकते हैं, occupy कर सकते हैं. Without this foliose stage, directly mosses can occupy the area. It can also happen. So soil will slowly accumulate among the erect stems as the plant die below and continue to grow above and build substratum and constantly increase their area. So obviously these lichens or mosses, they will also die. So mosses are growing erect. So when the wind is blowing, they carry some dust particles. Sorry for that. So wind is blowing, so they will carry some dust particles. These dust particles are trapped by these erect moss. So mineral particles are being accumulated. Death of the organisms, they're adding organic matter, and slowly the soil is becoming thicker. Soil layer is becoming more thick. So depth of soil under the cushion like mat is often 1 inch or even more. तो 1 इंच या उससे ज्यादा तुम्हारा थिकनेस हो जाता है सॉइल का. तो मैट जो बोल रहे हैं ना हम लोग, सो मॉस इट ग्रोस लाइक ए मैट. सो यू कैन सी हियर it is growing like a mat. So they grow very close together. They do look like mat. Hmm. So mosses, they form thick mats and play a significant role in building up the substratum of the soil. So they significantly add to the formation of soil. They add organic matter, they trap the particles, dust particles, and accumulate soil. So slowly the soil thickness will grow. Now, so continuous formation of soil. So soil layer is becoming more and more thicker, addition of organic matter. Okay, so all of this lead to a proper thick layer of soil. इतना 1-1.5 इंच का soil layer बन जाता, right? So their continuous growth, death and decay for several years, okay, they build up good soil which is fit for the growth of herbaceous flora. So now we have few centimeters of soil after so few years. So this continues for few years and ultimately you will have few centimeters thick soil. Now this soil layer is thick enough to support your herbaceous plants. So seeds, when they reach these area, so slowly the herbaceous plants, they will occupy the area. Now see, because of the few centimeters thick soil which is favorable for the growth of grasses or herbaceous plants, right? So देखो, इनिशियल जो स्पीशीज था पायनियर स्पीशीज में क्रस्टोस लाइचन, फोलियोस लाइचन एंड योर मॉसेस, all of them have modified the environment. It has helped in the formation of soil so that the area becomes more favorable for the next species. The changes are brought in by the species themselves. So the soil forming and soil holding reaction of mosses are so pronounced that seeds of some xerophytic herbs or especially short lived annuals, they are soon able to germinate and grow to maturity. तो अब इतना thick soil हो चुका है यहाँ पर कि annuals or xerophytic herbs, they will start to grow here. So they grow slowly and exhibit stunted growth because soil is not yet thick enough. थोड़ा बहुत few centimeters thick soil है, it is not very fertile. Droughts are very common here because thin soil है तो ज्यादा moisture hold नहीं कर सकता. So it is still in the initial stages. So soil which is formed is only few centimeters thick. Okay, drought conditions are still prevalent. So plants, they do not grow very tall. The plants, the herbs, they are dwarf, they are short. So roots of these xeric herbs continue to grow and corrode the rocks. So these roots of the herbs, they still help in weathering process. They are breaking down the rocks into smaller pieces. Biological weathering हो रहा है. So dead remains of the plants or the litter from the plants, they will add organic matter, humus will accumulate and the soil formation process is going on. So depending upon the plants growing in the surrounding communities, the invading herbs generally that you see is potentilla, solidago, saxifraga. So you have some species. These are some xerophytic herbs that grow. Okay. Now they are accumulating more and more organic matter. So your microflora, like your bacteria, fungi, and microfauna, they will slowly multiply. Their number also increases along with the plants. अब ये जो तुम्हारा microflora है, they also increase in number because moisture is there, organic matter, they feed on the organic matter. तो soil में organic matter है तो धीरे धीरे अब बैक्टीरिया फंगई उसका population भी बढ़ने लगेगी. So their growth makes the conditions less dry. Okay, so their death, the flora, microflora, they die and they also add organic matter. So अब herbs grow हो रहे हैं, they are adding organic matter. Soil is becoming more and more thicker. Soil का thickness बढ़ रहा है. Now अब next stage है, herbs are replaced by shrub. So woody shrubs like rus glabra or rubus, and your sassafras, they invade the area. Their shade makes the growth of herbs impossible and herbs will disappear. अब shrub जो है, they are bit taller. जो dwarf herbs थे, herbs, they were dwarf plants. There was not enough moisture and soil was very thin, so they could not grow very tall. Now shrubs have occupied the area, so there is competition for light and everything, nutrients and light. Shrubs, they grow taller and now they shade the herbs. Herbs को वो shadow, overshadow कर देते हैं. There they will not receive much sunlight and slowly herbs will be replaced by shrubs because they are better competitors. धीरे धीरे shrubs, they occupy the area slowly. So humidity increases, wind velocity is decreased because there is resistance. If there are shrubs of few centimeter tall, okay, or up to 1 meter, the wind velocity will reduce because of resistance. So slowly more organic matter will add to the soil, humus content or organic matter content will increase, more thick soil will form, okay, and slowly these shrubs will be replaced by woodland species. So the area will become more and more suitable for taller plants and woody plants. So addition of organic matter to the soil increases the water holding capacity. Its texture and structure will change. It will become more thick and it will become more fit or more suitable for woody species. So ultimately you have climax forest or climax community that will replace the shrubs. So trees which make their appearance are generally initial stages when they are dwarf sized. They can grow in xeric environment and they grow a bit apart. They're not very close growing. So they, again, because of competition, so they grow a bit apart from each other. Initially, the trees that occupy that dwarf, they can tolerate the xeric conditions. Okay, so these trees, they are followed by mesophytes. As the climate becomes more mesic or more moderate, xeric से more moderate conditions में transform हो रहा है. So examples are your Quercus species, Tilia. These are the trees which find their place in the climax community. So slowly your bare rock surface, which was initially occupied by your crustose lichen, it will be transformed into climax community. So it will take a bit, I mean, ये जो transformation हो रहा है, it will take a long period of time. It may take hundreds of years to transform from bare rock to climax community. It may take even up to 1,000 years also. It depends. So that is how your xerac succession takes place. So you have crustose lichen. So which is your pioneer community. Then it is followed by foliose lichen. Then you have moss, your bryophytes. Sometimes crustose lichen is followed by directly the mosses without foliose. So after that you have herbs, shrubs, and ultimately climax community. Okay, so that was xerac succession. So that happens on the surface of, lithosphere, or it starts from the bare rock and ultimately ends in climax community. So climax community is stable. It is in equilibrium with the environment. No further change will happen until unless there is an accident. Okay, so I think now it is clear कि कैसे changes हो रहे हैं. You have an idea. Now let us move on to hydrosphere or hydrarch succession. So we'll quickly move through this also. So hydrosphere, again, sphere are series of steps or hydrarch succession. So basically a aquatic ecosystem is transforming into a terrestrial ecosystem here. So it occurs in a pond. It starts from aquatic ecosystem, pond, and its community are converted into land community. So aquatic community will be converted into land community. So that is what is happening in the hydrarch succession. So it refers to the type of plant succession in wet areas that progress from hydric condition, so aquatic condition to mesic condition, terrestrial condition में transform हो रहा है. Ultimately it will transform into a forest. So your aquatic ecosystem will be transformed into a terrestrial forest, woodland में convert हो रहा है. Okay, so basically it begins in a shallow water ecosystem. So it basically is a type of plant succession that begins in shallow water. So series of steps that happens which converts your hydric conditions or your aquatic community into a terrestrial community. So ये जो series of steps हैं इनको बोलते हैं हम लोग hydrosphere. Okay, so it converts water bodies and the communities into land communities. So water based communities को land communities में convert हो रहा है यहाँ पर. So it starts from shallow water bodies. So plant succession here begins in the ponds or lakes or the marshes or elsewhere in the water. They are termed as hydrarch, and these stages of transformation it is called as hydrosphere. Okay, so obviously what happens, these water bodies they will become slowly shallow. Okay, ये जो water bodies हैं they will become more and more shallow and ultimately transform into a land community. So water is deep in the middle and becomes progressively shallow towards the bank. Normally किसी भी water body में ऐसे ही होता है, center में deep होता है और corner or the edges or the banks they will be shallow. Right. So here the first community which is occupying this area is your submerged plants. So the initial community here is submerged plants. So it is characterized by bottom barren of plant life. So pioneers include phytoplanktons, obviously ये जो submerged stage है phytoplanktons के बाद आएगा. So जो basic plant community है, no, even your phytoplanktons, they are algae, they are also considered as plants, but real sense में जो plants आते हैं they are starting from the submerged. So initially it starts from phytoplanktons which are algae, basically single celled organisms, diatoms, dinoflagellates. So it starts from phytoplanktons and next stage will be your submerged plants. Okay, so initial community will be your phytoplankton. It consists of microscopic algae, bacteria, diatoms, protozoa. So they are the pioneer community. Phytoplanktons after their death they will settle down at the bottom. So यहाँ पर जो phytoplankton जब मर जाएंगे they will settle at the bottom of the lake. Now for the submerged plants to anchor or to root, you require soil or sediments at the bottom of the lake, है ना. वो sediments कहाँ से आ रहे हैं? तो for the plants to anchor themselves in the bottom or the base of the lake, they require sediments. So these sediments they come from the death of your phytoplankton. So these diatoms or your phytoplanktons, when they die, they will accumulate at the bottom of the lake. So they form the initial sediments, bottom of the lake में deposit हो जाएंगे. So after they die, they will settle at the bottom. So the soils are very much reduced with a pH value of not more than 5. तो यहां पर देखो एनारोबिक कंडीशंस है, एरोबिक कंडीशंस नहीं है, इट इज सबमर्ज्ड एंड द pH is also very low, it is less than 5, the sediments at the bottom of the lake. So phytoplankton is the pioneer stage. When they die, they accumulate at the bottom to give you some sediment where your submerged plants can anchor themselves. तो soil formation होना है ना वहां पर भी, they require some amount of sediments because the roots of these submerged plants, they have to anchor themselves. So second stage after your pioneer stage is submerged stage. So your phytoplanktons, that is the first stage, which is followed by submerged plants. Examples, your hydrilla, vallisneria. So these are the examples. So this stage is found where water is less than 20 feet deep because sunlight चाहिए. So sunlight cannot penetrate very deep portions. So जहां तक सनलाइट पेनिट्रेट हो रहा है वहीं पर तुमको मिलेंगे बिकॉज दे हैव टू कैरी ऑन फोटोसिंथेसिस. So where the water depth is less than 20 feet, you will see these submerged plants. These are entirely submerged. Plant का पूरा part पूरा तुम्हारा submerged है. No part of the plant is outside. Entire plant is submerged in water. Okay. So prominent submerged plants include Potamogeton, so that is the pond weed, then hornwort, eelgrass, vallisneria, waterweed, okay, hydrilla, bladderwort. So these are some of the plants, chara and ranunculus. So these are all rooted plants. They are rooted in the sediments. ये sediment कहाँ से आए हैं? Death of the phytoplankton. So when these plants die, they remain at the bottom and they will become humus. So they will become organic matter. So the death of these submerged plants is also adding organic matter. So the humus binds the soft muddy soil and these plants help in depositing the soil particles at the bottom. So देखो pond में sediments भी तो आ रहे हैं, बारिश होगा, so when there is rain, so runoff water will enter into the lakes, so their sediments are also adding because of the erosion. Sediments are entering into the pond through erosion. So organic matter is added by the death of the plants, sediments are added by erosion, and slowly you see the pond is becoming more and more shallow because at the bottom sediments and the organic matter due to the death of these plants they are accumulating. So जैसे जैसे accumulate होता जाएगा तो pond shallow बनता जाएगा. So the pond is becoming more and more shallow due to the accumulation of these sediments through erosion and also addition of organic matter. So the water becomes more shallow and the habitat becomes unsuitable for the submerged plants. So submerged plants के लिए ज़्यादा suitable नहीं रहेगा. So now the environment is less suitable for submerged plants and it becomes more favorable for floating plants. So यहाँ पे देखो submerged free floating plant stage. Now इसका मतलब क्या है? So your submerged plants they are replaced by floating plants. Okay. So here these stage. So again दो टाइप के हैं इसमें. Floating plants can be without anchoring to the base, so they are free floating, so they are drifting with the water. Then there are floating plants where their root is anchored in the base but the leaves they are floating at the surface to carry on the photosynthesis. Floating में भी दो टाइप के हैं. Okay, one is free floating and second one is those plants where roots are anchored but leaf part is floating. The stage is present where water is only 6 to 8 feet deep, so very shallow water. So it includes rooted plants with floating leaves, for example water lily, nilambium, your lotus. ये सारे जो हैं तुम्हारे anchored हैं soil में at the base of at the bottom of the lake, they're anchored, but the leaves are on the surface. Then there are free floating. The roots are floating in the water. They are not anchored. So तुम्हारे जो है पिस्टिया, अजोला, लेम्मा, so they're not anchored, where the roots are floating freely in the water. They are drifting with the water. So water level by now becomes very much decreased, making the pond more and more shallower. So these organisms, these plants, when they die, they also accumulate at the bottom. More and more sediments they are accumulating in the pond due to erosion. जब भी rainfall होगा तो sediments आएंगे pond में. So it is becoming more and more shallow. Water body is becoming more and more shallow. Now you see how the environment is being modified. धीरे धीरे environment modify हो रहा है. Pond is becoming more and more shallow. So death of the plants, so humus will be formed, which results in higher concentration of salts and organic matter. And ultimately, water becomes unsuitable for these floating plants. They are replaced by reed swamp plants. So reed swamp plants में क्या होता है? A part of the plant will be submerged in the water. Rest of the plant will be above the water. So reed swamp stage में देखो यहाँ पर. So here you can see they are anchored, but half of the plant is outside also. So reed is a grass. So reed जो है ना एक तरह का grass है that grows in the swamps. So this stage is also called as amphibious stage, that occurs where water is only 1 to 4 feet deep. It includes plants that are partly submerged with their roots at the bottom and the upper parts above the surface, or the stem part is above the surface. So ये कौन से हैं? So you have cattail, that is typha. ऐसे grass होता है. You see grass will be like this, and at the tip you have, and इसको अगर तुम करोगे ना तो कॉटन जैसा लगता है. सो इसको ना टैचिंग के लिए यूज करते हैं. झोपड़ी होता है ना, झोपड़ी, यू कैन से हट्स, हट्स के ऊपर इसको टैचिंग के लिए यूज करते हैं, ढकने के लिए, है ना. ऐसे वाला हट्स देखा होगा तुमने झोपड़ी विलेजेस में. सो दे आर जनरली यूज्ड फॉर टैचिंग पर्पस. ऐसे हट्स देखा होगा ना, आजकल तो कम दिखते हैं. इवन इन विलेजेस वी हैव कॉन्क्रीट बिल्डिंग्स एवरीवेयर नाउ, बट बहुत पहले कुछ पार्ट्स में अभी भी है, टैचिंग के लिए यूज करते हैं. सो कैटेल बोलते हैं इसको, टाइफा. देन यू हैव bulrush, reed grass, sagittaria, arrowhead. So these are partly submerged in water and partly outside the water. So their upper part is outside the water and lower part is anchored in the water. So these plants cut off the light from floating plants. So because they are emerging out of the water, they cut off the light for your free floating plants. So obviously free floating plants के लिए light नहीं मिलेगा तो they will be eliminated. यहाँ पर light के लिए competition हो रहा है. These plants cut off the light from floating plants, and in this way the water, it becomes more and more shallow, and again the humus will accumulate and more sediments are accumulating in the lake over time, and slowly the environment, it becomes more and more suitable for next stage, that is called as marsh meadow stage. So we'll see what is marsh meadow. अच्छा, reed swamp stage जो है ना, now I watched a documentary long back. अगर तुम क्रिश्चियन फेथ के बारे में कुछ जानते हो या सुना होगा तो there were 10 curses when the Israelites, the people of Israel, they were slaves under Egypt. ये पता है तुमको? They were slaves under the Pharaoh of Egypt. Plague, there were 10 curses. So few of them as I remember. So the eldest son will die from every house. Eldest son will die. There will be the blood, the Nile river will, blood will flow in Nile river. So fire and rain, it will fall together. Then there will be plague, those crickets or locust, they will eat away all the food. So people of Egypt will suffer because they have angered the god of Israelites. So Israel के जो लोग हैं, उनके जो गॉड है उनको एंगर किया, बिकॉज दे वर टॉर्चरिंग दीज पीपल. सो अल्टीमेटली व्हाट हैपेंस इज, मोसेस, उनको पता होगा, ही इज वन ऑफ द प्रॉफिट, राइट? मोसेस फॉर द ज्यूस, he is the main prophet, right? So Moses, he guides the people from Egypt to a new land, so to land of Israel. And there was a movie also ना, क्रिस्टन बेल का मूवी था, याद होगा तो तुमको ये, where Moses, when he is guiding the people, मैं ये क्यों बोल रहा हूँ बताऊंगा. हाँ, 10 Commandments मूवी, या. So what happens is, when he is guiding, so there is a sea, okay, and behind the soldiers of Pharaoh, they are coming to kill them. And Moses, he is guiding the people to the new land, okay, free land, their land of Israel, away from Egypt. So what happens is, to cross the sea, he will part the sea. So sea जो है, समुद्र जो है, the water will divide. So he will make a path through the sea. ये सुना होगा, मूवीज में भी देखा होगा तुम लोगों ने. So actually में there was a documentary where every curse was explained scientifically, why these curse have a scientific basis. So this the parting of the sea, where Moses will divide the sea, जो रेड सी है वो डिवाइड करके they will cross the sea and go to the land of Israel. And the Pharaoh soldiers, they will be buried in the sea. So अभी भी हैं उनके, archaeological evidences are there. So chariots, they have been found. Now इसको रेड सी क्यों बोलते हैं? तो दिस इज, आई मीन, misspelled. Actually it is reed sea, not red sea. ओके, रीड सी से रेड सी बन गया. सो एक्चुअली रीड इज द वीड. रीड ग्रास जो है ना, ये एक यहां पर देख रहे हो, रीड ग्रास जो है. सो दिस वाज शैलो वाटर, टाइड्स आते हैं, ओके. सो टाइडल एरिया है जहां पर शैलो वाटर है. सो व्हेन दे वर क्रॉसिंग, एक्चुअली ये जो रिलीजियस टेक्स्ट है थोड़ा सा, वो लोग ना, दे फिक्शनलाइज इट, राइट? बहुत ज्यादा उसको बड़ा चढ़ा के बोलते हैं, they exaggerate. Now what happened was, this was a period of low tide and they crossed the area, and by the time the Pharaoh soldiers, they arrived, high tide आ गया, and they were submerged in that area, right? So यहाँ पे जो ग्रास जो ग्रो होता था उसको रीड ग्रास था. एक्चुअली इट वाज अ स्वैम्प एरिया, इट वाज नॉट एक्चुअली ओशन. तो रीड ग्रास वहां पे ग्रो होता था बिकॉज इट वाज अ स्वैम्प. सो ड्यूरिंग द low tide they crossed, and high tide के टाइम पे वो आ गए. And other curses like eldest son will die. So there was a lake where lot of carbon dioxide it leaked from those lakes. बहुत सारा carbon dioxide, because not carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, I guess. So it is more denser than your air. And इजिप्ट में ना, एल्डेस्ट सन ही यूज्ड टू स्लीप ऑन द कॉट, एंड बाकी लोग ना एटिक में सोते थे. एल्डेस्ट सन ही यूज्ड टू स्लीप ऑन द कॉट. सो बिकॉज ऑफ द डेंस गैस दे गॉट सफोकेटेड एंड दे डाइड. दो नाइल रिवर जो रेड हो जाता है ब्लड से होगा, तो दैट वाज बिकॉज ऑफ आयरन ऑक्साइड. सो इट टर्न इनटू रेड रिवर. सो ब्लड से कंपेयर किया उसको. सो fire and rain will fall together. So it was because of volcanic eruption in the Mediterranean Sea. इटली के पास मेडिटेरियन सी में वॉल्केनिक eruption हुआ एंड एश इट रीच्ड इजिप्ट. सो एश आ रहा है, इसका मतलब फायर ही है. सो देयर वर साइंटिफिक एक्सप्लेनेशन. तो रीड वाला जो मुझे याद है ना, रेड सी का जो रीड सी है, एक्चुअली इट वाज रीड ग्रास व्हिच वाज ग्रोइंग, जिससे वो नाम पड़ा है रेड सी. आई थॉट I could share it, but again, we are off the track. So let us continue. So meadow marsh. Okay. So now the pond is becoming more and more shallow. Okay. Pond is becoming more and more shallow. Sediments are accumulating through erosion. The plants, submerged plants or floating plants, they are dead. They are dying. They are replaced by other species. So when they die, they accumulate at the bottom and add organic matter. Now you have marsh meadow stage after the reed swamp. So marsh meadow stage, it includes hydrophytes or water loving plants. So the water level is barely up to 1 to 2 inches of water. Soil, अब जो है इसको marshy soil बोलेंगे. Soil is saturated with water, it is not totally submerged, right? So this is now invaded by numerous species of sedges. So sedge is a grass, ये भी एक तरह का grass है, but it has triangular stem. Okay. So sedge is a grass, type of grass basically. Cyperaceae family से belong करता है. So they belong to Cyperaceae family. Cypress rotundus is a sedge. So example, Juncus, okay, Caris, Spikerush, Polygonum. So these are some of the species that will occupy the area. Many herbs like mint, marsh marigold, bellflower, they also occur intermixed with these sedges. All of these are hydrophytes. They are water loving. They can tolerate the, you can say, submerged conditions. They can tolerate submerged conditions. So all of these are hydrophytes. They react upon the habitat. They raise the surface by binding water carried and wind-borne soil. Plant debris will accumulate slowly. So यहाँ पर देखो sediments are accumulating. Organic matter will accumulate by the death of organism. Slowly the water quantity will reduce. So देखो एक pond ecosystem, right, aquatic ecosystem, slowly it is becoming more and more shallow and ultimately it is becoming a terrestrial ecosystem. So पानी पूरा वहां से निकल जाएगा. अब ये land based plants, that is mesophytes के लिए ज्यादा favorable है. So the environment is becoming more and more favorable for mesophytes. So this makes the soil more suitable for the mesophytes and terrestrial plants. So hydrophytes, और ज्यादा ड्राई कंडीशन है तो हाइड्रोफाइट्स नहीं रह पाएंगे वहां पर. हाइड्रोफाइट्स विल बी रिप्लेस्ड बाय mesophytes here. So more grasses they will occupy and slowly we will have a woodland stage. So here shrubs and grasses, they will occupy the area. So if the climate is dry, then grassland develops, but under the moist condition a woodland will form which contains shrubs and small trees. Water का presence कितना उसके ऊपर डिपेंड करेगा. If there is more quantity of water which can support larger trees, if the water level is very low, it can support only grasses. So it depends about how much water is available. So this stage is characterized by plants that can tolerate waterlogged soil around their roots. So these plants or trees, they can tolerate waterlogged conditions. So these are some of the species you see here: cottonwood, alder, salix, shrubby willow. So these are some of the species. These plants by their reaction make the soil unsuitable for themselves. So they will grow, add organic matter, soil will become more acidic, and now they are the reason for modifying the environment which is unsuitable for themselves. So they modify the environment which becomes harmful for themselves. So slowly वो अपने लिए ही खतरा है. They modify the environment which becomes unsuitable for themselves and slowly they will be replaced by climax forest. So here you have willow, alder, cottonwood, elm, oak. So these trees will occupy the area. So from a aquatic ecosystem, it is transformed into a woodland or a forest. So this is called as hydrarch succession or hydrosphere. Xerox succession, it starts from bare rock surface. यहाँ पर एक pond से शुरू हो रहा है. So these are the two types. So yes, we have seen hydrarch and xerox succession. So that was ecological succession, and with examples we have seen that. Okay, so we are done with succession. Now we are entering into biogeochemical cycles. So mainly we'll focus on nitrogen and carbon. We will also look at hydrological cycle. बाकी जो sedimentary cycles हैं, phosphorus, sulfur, they are not very important. मैं notes में उनको दे दूंगा. Okay. Mainly examination, if you look at from examination point of view, those biogeochemical cycles which contribute to climate change or which has more significance. Okay, उनके ऊपर क्वेश्चन ज्यादा आते हैं. नाइट्रोजन साइकिल इज द मोस्ट प्रोमिनेंट वन. नाइट्रोजन साइकिल पे पहले क्वेश्चंस आ चुके हैं. So you focus more on these cycles. Okay, so what are biogeochemical cycles? Let us look into some introduction कि biogeochemical cycle होता क्या है. Then we will go to nitrogen cycle. Okay, so we'll cover nitrogen today, and with that we'll conclude today's class. Okay, नाइट्रोजन साइकिल एक देख लेंगे और उसके बाद क्लास को खत्म कर देंगे. So okay, so as the name suggests, biogeochemical cycle का मतलब क्या है? Okay, so bio part means living organisms, right? Geo means geology, जब हम लोग बोलते हैं तो rocks. And chemical, when we say, we are talking about the chemical elements in the periodic table. So biogeochemical cycle. Okay, so bio is living organisms, geo means rocks or minerals, and chemical means the chemical elements in the periodic table. It refers to chemical elements. Now if you look at the definition, so it is defined as the cyclic exchange of material between living organisms and their non-living environment to ensure conservation of nutrients in the ecosystem. So living and non-living, biotic and abiotic. Exchange, or you can say movement of the elements between living and non-living components. So biotic और abiotic जो components हैं उनके बीच में exchange जो हो रहा है तुम्हारा. So these elements, chemical elements, they move from biotic environment or biotic component to abiotic component, and again back to the biotic component from the abiotic component. So exchange of material or basically your elements between the biotic and abiotic components, that is your biogeochemical cycle. Because see, energy, it flows through the ecosystem. Okay, and part of energy is lost in the form of heat. Okay, so energy, it flows through the ecosystem. So food chain mein, if you see, only 10% of the biomass will be transferred to the next what do you call this here? मैं भूल गया एकदम से. So in the food chain, from one stage to another stage, energy will be passed on, but only 10% of biomass will be transferred. Okay, rest will be lost in the form of heat. Okay, some of the energy will be utilized by the organism and rest of it will be moved to next stage, right? So energy फूड चेन में एक ऑर्गेनिज्म से दूसरे ऑर्गेनिज्म में ट्रांसफर होता है, बट सम ऑफ इट इज लॉस्ट इन द फॉर्म ऑफ हीट ऑल्सो. सम ऑफ इट इज यूटिलाइज्ड फ्रॉम मेटाबॉलिक प्रोसेस, जैसे प्लांट्स से हर्बिवोर्स में जा रहा है. सो हर्बिवोर्स ईट द प्लांट्स, herbivores are eaten by carnivores, primary carnivores are eaten by secondary carnivores and tertiary, इस तरह से. So when the energy is flowing, a part of it is lost in the form of heat. But ये जो elements है, matter जो है, so this matter is conserved, it will be recycled again. Okay, so energy loss हो सकता है, but matter is conserved. So energy flows through an ecosystem and it is released as heat, but chemical elements, they are not lost, they are recycled, they will remain in the biosphere. Okay, they are recycled. So these chemical elements, they move from biotic component to abiotic component and again back to biotic component, so they are recycled. So it is movement of nutrients and other elements between living and non-living beings, that is called as your biogeochemical cycle. तो living and non-living components के बीच में जो exchange हो रहा है, so how these elements are moving from biotic to abiotic and back to the biotic component. So this is called as, so for example, so plants, so example ले लो, plants, they take up nutrients from the soil, right? Soil में जो भी nutrients हैं, so your nitrates for example, phosphorus, orthophosphate, potassium ion, so they take up the nutrients from the soil and plants will grow. But when the plants die, they will add organic matter to the soil back, है ना? soil में फिर से organic matter add करते हैं, so this organic matter will mineralize, organic matter will be converted into inorganic minerals. Organic matter जब decompose होता है तो inorganic minerals release होते हैं, they will again be taken by the plants. So elements are recycled. Soil से plants लेता है, जब plant मर जाते हैं तो वापस soil में जाता है, they are recycled. Okay, now जो energy flow है, it is, so energy flows directionally, it is directional. So from herbivores to from plants to herbivores, herbivores to carnivores, right? So there is directional flow. So energy flows directionally through the ecosystem, entering as sunlight. So free energy from the sunlight will be converted to carbohydrates in the plants. So plants will be eaten by herbivores, herbivores are be eaten by carnivores. In this way, we have flow of energy from one trophic level to another trophic level. The energy will flow in the ecosystem. Okay, matter जो है, so some amount of energy is lost in the form of heat, but matter will be recycled, matter will not be lost. So rather than flowing through an ecosystem, matter that makes up the organisms is conserved and recycled. यहाँ पर एग्जाम्पल जो दिया है, सी द लॉ ऑफ कंजर्वेशन ऑफ मास, इट सेज मैटर इज जनरली एनर्जी के लिए यूज होता है. So conservation of mass states that matter is neither created nor destroyed, so it changes from one form to another form. एनर्जी के लिए हम लोग ये यूज करते हैं. So same is true with the chemical elements in the ecosystem. So they're not lost, they just change the form, they move from one component to another component. So for some time these elements will be part of plant. So nitrogen that is taken up by the plant, it will be in the form of amino acids or proteins in the form of organic components in the plant. Plant when dies, these proteins or amino acids, they will enter into the soil, they will be broken down by the microbes and convert into nitrates. So these nitrates are either taken by microbes or they are taken by the plants again, so they are recycled. Okay, so matter moves from one component to another component. So biotic component में रहेगा थोड़े टाइम के लिए. Again, when the biotic component dies, it will go to the abiotic component. So again, they are taken up by the biotic component. So in this way, they are continuously recycled. So you will get it better when we see nitrogen cycle. Types of biogeochemical cycle में we have two types: gaseous cycle and sedimentary cycle. Okay, so gaseous cycle क्या है? So main reservoir of the nutrient is the atmosphere and hydrosphere. So where the main reservoir of the particular nutrient or the element is एटमॉस्फेयर और हाइड्रोस्फीयर. जैसे तुम्हारा नाइट्रोजन है, नाइट्रोजन का मेन रिजर्वायर क्या है? एटमॉस्फेयर. 78% तुम्हारा एटमॉस्फेयर में नाइट्रोजन है. इफ यू सी कार्बन साइकिल, अगेन एटमॉस्फेयर इज द मेन रिजर्वायर ऑफ योर कार्बन साइकिल. CO2 के लिए कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड इज मेनली इट इज प्रेजेंट इन द एटमॉस्फेयर. So those nutrients where the reservoir is either atmosphere or hydrosphere, it is called as gaseous cycle. Okay, so gaseous cycles tend to move more rapidly to adjust more readily to the changes in the biosphere. So even if there is a disturbance, they will again go back to the original position. They will adjust themselves because the reservoir is very large. They are present in large quantities. So they will readjust. Even if there is a disturbance, they will try to readjust quickly. So extraordinary disturbances, they can disrupt these cycles. As a global warming hai. Okay, more frequent disturbances like wildfire. Okay, so they can disturb these gaseous cycles. So example of gaseous cycle kya hai? Water cycle, oxygen cycle, carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle. So these are examples of your gaseous cycles. So nutrients are replaced as fast as they are utilized. So ये cycle थोड़ा quick है. It is quick. Then you have sedimentary cycle. So where the reservoirs of the nutrients are rocks or the sediments. So main reservoir is the soil and sedimentary and other rocks of the earth crust. It is not the atmosphere or hydrosphere that is the reservoir. It is the lithosphere or the rocks or the sediments. That is the main reservoir of these elements. So example, sulfur cycle, phosphorus cycle, calcium, magnesium. They're not that important because they're not contributing significantly to the climate change or any other main problems. So from examination point of view also, they are secondary. इतना ज़्यादा उसके ऊपर. So most of the times what happens is these nutrients, they get locked up or they go out of circulation. So they are not regularly in the circulation. They may get locked up in the sediments, in the rocks. They're not readily recycled. Okay, sometimes they may be locked up for a certain period of time, these nutrients. Now, importance again. So recycling है basically. Nutrients, they move from biotic to abiotic, abiotic back to biotic. So this is essential for the survival, for the survival of communities. So proper functioning of these various biogeochemical cycles is very crucial for the life forms on the earth, because generally communities, they depend upon the primary producers. Primary producers, generally these are plants, right? These are the plants. So plants, they require nutrients for their growth, right? So we have essential elements. So they are necessary. So this nutrient cycling is necessary for the survival or for the life to exist on the earth. Without plants, there won't be any energy transfer in the ecosystem, right? So plants are the primary producers. So they require nutrients. These cycles transform the matter from one form to another form for use of different organisms and natural systems. For example, plants जो हैं, plants that take up nutrients only in inorganic form. प्लांट्स कभी भी ऑर्गेनिक फॉर्म में न्यूट्रिएंट्स नहीं लेते हैं. सपोज तुम सॉइल में ऑर्गेनिक मैटर डाल रहे हो, यू आर एडिंग ऑर्गेनिक मैटर टू द सॉइल. ऑर्गेनिक मैटर या फार्म यार्ड मैन्यूर बोलो, फार्म यार्ड मैन्यूर डाले हो, और दूसरे केस में फर्टिलाइजर डाला है सॉइल में. सपोज यू हैव टू प्लॉट्स. इन वन प्लॉट यू आर एडिंग फार्म यार्ड मैन्यूर और ऑर्गेनिक मैटर. इन द अदर प्लॉट यू आर solely adding the chemical fertilizers, right? So organic matter add किया है, यहाँ पर यूरिया डाला है तुमने, right? यूरिया is a fertilizer that is in organic form. हाँ, यूरिया का फॉर्मूला क्या है? This is the formula of urea. So sir, यूरिया नहीं करते हैं. Take another example. अमोनियम सल्फेट ले लेते हैं. अमोनियम सल्फेट. So NH4 twice SO4, अमोनियम सल्फेट. So अगर तुम प्लांट में, प्लांट के लिए सॉइल में ऑर्गेनिक मैटर डालो, it will decompose and ultimately give you nitrate. अमोनियम सल्फेट डाल रहे हो तो ये जब सॉइल में डालोगे तो इट विल ब्रेक डाउन इनटू अमोनियम आयन एंड सल्फेट आयन. सो अमोनियम जो है इट विल ट्रांसफॉर्म इनटू नाइट्राइट एंड अल्टीमेटली नाइट्रेट. सो वेदर यू ऐड ऑर्गेनिक मैटर और यू ऐड फर्टिलाइजर, प्लांट को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. प्लांट्स ओनली टेक अप नाइट्रोजन इन नाइट्रेट फॉर्म. some can take it directly ammonia form, but generally plants they take only nitrate form. So तुम फर्टिलाइजर डालो या ऑर्गेनिक मैटर डालो, प्लांट्स को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता क्योंकि प्लांट्स सिर्फ नाइट्रेट फॉर्म में एब्जॉर्ब करते हैं, राइट? सो साइकिल्स ट्रांसफॉर्म मैटर फ्रॉम वन फॉर्म टू अनदर फॉर्म. तो यहां पे देखो, ऑर्गेनिक फॉर्म से इनऑर्गेनिक फॉर्म में. दिस कन्वर्जन इज इंपॉर्टेंट. ये जो प्रोसेस है इसको बोलते हैं मिनरलाइजेशन. Without this, plants will not be able to take up the nutrients. Inorganic form में नहीं होगा तो plants तो organic form में absorb नहीं कर सकते. Plants cannot absorb in organic form, so they have to, this conversion has to happen, and this happens because of this nutrient cycle. So organic matter will be transformed into inorganic matter due to microbial action. So these inorganic nutrients, when they are again entering into the soil, they are taken up by the plants. So once plants take up, they convert this inorganic into organic form. Right? This conversion is necessary for the survival. So these cycles facilitate the storage of various elements for long term and for short term usage. So अब जो inorganic form का nutrient ले रहा है, so nitrate which is entering into the plant, it will be transformed into again ammonia. It will be transformed into ammonia and it will be transformed into amino acids and proteins, and it will be stored in the plant for some period of time. Again, when the plant dies, it will go back into the soil where conversion will happen again into nitrate form. So this has to continue. These nutrient cycles, they are very essential for the life to exist on the earth. Okay. So now we know the main point, the importance of these cycles. So let us first discuss nitrogen, and we will see some of the PYQs that have been asked from this particular part. So we'll conclude with nitrogen cycle today's class. So nitrogen, so in nitrogen cycle, nitrogen is converted into one form, from one form to another form. So nitrogen is converted into multiple chemical forms as it circulates among different spheres, okay, from atmosphere to terrestrial system and to marine ecosystems. So nitrogen will be converted from one form to another form in the biosphere. So the conversion is carried out by physical process or microbes. So see, nitrogen जो तुम्हारा एटमॉस्फेयर में है, it is in elemental form. Biological organisms cannot utilize this nitrogen. जो तुम्हारा elemental form में nitrogen है, 78% of the atmosphere, it is nitrogen, right? But organisms, they cannot utilize it. So it has to be converted into usable form. So it has to be fixed into the soil. Soil में इसको fix करना है. इसको हम लोग नाइट्रोजन फिक्सेशन बोलते हैं. सो इट कैन हैपन थ्रू बायोलॉजिकल ऑर्गेनिजम्स और फ्रॉम फिजिकल प्रोसेस. लाइटनिंग, फॉर एग्जांपल, लाइटनिंग आल्सो फिक्सेस एटमॉस्फेरिक नाइट्रोजन इन द सॉइल. सो या तो फिजिकल प्रोसेस के थ्रू या फिर बायोलॉजिकल, बायो फर्टिलाइजर्स, राइट? सो देयर आर सम बायोलॉजिकल ऑर्गेनिजम्स that can fix atmospheric nitrogen into usable form. So majority of the atmosphere is nitrogen, okay? It is the largest source of nitrogen, but again it is not available to the plants, it is not available to the biological organisms. So it has to be converted from elemental nitrogen into usable form, right? Now nitrogen, it is present in the environment in a wide variety. So अलग अलग फॉर्म में तुमको नाइट्रोजन मिलेगा. इट कैन बी अवेलेबल इन अमोनियम आयन फॉर्म. सो अमोनिया या अमोनियम आयन जब वाटर के प्रेजेंस में है तो अमोनियम आयन के फॉर्म में होता है. इन द एब्सेंस ऑफ वाटर इट इज इन अमोनिया फॉर्म. देन यू हैव नाइट्राइट, नाइट्रेट, नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड, N2O, नाइट्रिक ऑक्साइड, इनऑर्गेनिक नाइट्रोजन गैस. सो इट कैन बी इन डिफरेंट फॉर्म्स. ये इनऑर्गेनिक फॉर्म है. So nitrogen can be present in inorganic form. Organic form क्या है? अमीनो एसिड्स, प्रोटीन्स, ये तुम्हारा ऑर्गेनिक फॉर्म है. अमीनो एसिड का फॉर्मूला क्या है? आर. This is the formula for amino acids. So R can be alkyl or aryl group. It can be a benzene ring or it can be alkyl group. So R NH2COH. So there is an amine group, carboxylic acid group, and alkyl or aryl group. So amino acids, they will join together to form polypeptide proteins, right? So organic form is amino acids or protein form in the organisms. Inorganic form, we can see nitrogen is present in different inorganic forms. So here nitrogen cycle, what happens in nitrogen cycle is nitrogen will be moving from biological components to abiotic components, from biotic to abiotic and back to the biotic component. How this nitrogen is recycled among biotic and abiotic components, that is the nitrogen cycle. So for example, देखो, nitrogenous waste in animal urine, they are broken down by nitrifying bacteria in the soil to be used by plants. Animal, जैसे suppose cow है, cow is a mammal, right? mammals are ureotelic, right? We excrete urea. यूरिया जो है, यूरिएज, तो सॉइल में यूरिया मेटाबोलाइजिंग बैक्टीरिया है, तो यूरिएज एंजाइम के थ्रू यूरिया विल बी कन्वर्टेड टू अमोनिया या अमोनियम आयन इन द प्रेजेंस ऑफ वाटर, राइट? So here ammonia will be converted into nitrite and again nitrite to nitrate. This process is called as nitrification. Nitrification में दो steps हैं, ammonia to nitrite पहला step है, second step is nitrite to nitrate. So यूरिया जो ऐड हो रहा है यूरिन के थ्रू, वो भी तुम्हारा नाइट्रेट में ही कन्वर्ट होगा, that is ultimately taken up by the plants. Plants cannot take up urea, it has to be converted into, हाँ, this conversion of organic to inorganic form, this process is called as mineralization. So same thing happens when organic matter is added to the soil. तो organic matter जब add करते हो तो we'll see the mineralization process later, but again organic matter जब add करते हो तो क्या होगा, यूरिया नहीं आ रहा है वहां पर, basically it will start from protein, it will break down to amino acids will be broken down into amine, it will be transformed into ammonia, again nitrite and nitrate. तो वहां पर ये सारे स्टेप्स होते हैं. सो ऑर्गेनिक मैटर में जो है तुम्हारा प्रोटीन है, organic matter that you add into the soil, it contains protein, carbohydrates, right? The protein will break down to amino acids, to amine, to ammonia, to nitrite, to nitrate. So the same process will continue, similar process will continue. This is called as mineralization. We will look into that. Okay. So if you see nitrogen cycle, we have different steps in here. So basically how this nitrogen is circulating between different spheres. So atmosphere, which is the largest reservoir, has 78% of nitrogen, but it is unavailable. So ये जो nitrogen है atmosphere में, it is fixed by microbes, nitrogen fixing bacteria, और जो generally biofertilizer जो है तुम्हारे, they will fix the atmospheric nitrogen. So elemental nitrogen जो unusable form में है, then it is not useful for the living organisms. It has to be converted into ammonia. So nitrogen fixing bacteria जो है, it will convert the elemental nitrogen into ammonia. So this ammonia, again, ammonia, plants, they do not take ammonia directly. So this ammonia has to be converted into nitrates. So ammonia जो है, first it will be converted into nitrite, nitrifying bacteria, nitrite. ये जो nitrifying bacteria, it is called as nitrosomonas. Okay, so once it is converted to nitrite, this is again converted to nitrate. देखो ऑक्सीजन यहाँ पर क्या है, NH3 है, ऑक्सीजन नहीं है, ऑक्सीजन ऐड हो रहा है तो ऑक्सीडाइज्ड, so it is oxidized, right? So it happens in the presence of oxygen. तो ऑक्सीजन के प्रेजेंस में होता है, एरोबिक प्रोसेस है ना. नाइट्रिफिकेशन जो प्रोसेस है, नाइट्रिफिकेशन वेयर ammonia is converted to nitrite and then to nitrate, it is aerobic, क्योंकि ऑक्सीजन ऐड हो रहा है, देख रहे हो, अमोनिया को NO2 में कन्वर्ट हो रहा है, ऑक्सीजन इज एडिंग, सो ये एरोबिक प्रोसेस है, ऑक्सीडेशन हो रहा है यहाँ पर. ओके, सो नाइट्रेट, सो नाइट्रेट में कन्वर्ट हो गया. सो नाइट्रेट जो है, इट इज taken up by the plants. So assimilation is taking place. Plants will take up the nitrogen. It will convert them into again ammonia inside the plants. फिर से ammonia में and then to amino acids में convert होगा. Again वापस ammonia में convert होता है. फिर वहां से ammonia से amino acids में बनेगा. Amino acids are converted into proteins through translation process. So the process will continue. Now these animals are eaten by the herbivores. So plants or animals, when they die, what happens? Right, decomposition. So organic matter is added to the soil. Plants and animals, when they die, so decomposition will happen. So protein है, amino acids, amines, and ammonia. Again this process will continue. Okay, so under reduced conditions, so अगर यहाँ पर waterlogged conditions हैं, जैसे तुम्हारा paddy. So when you're cultivating paddy, you grow the paddy in the lowland cultivation under submerged water. So you maintain 10 centimeters water thickness, 10 centimeter water तुम layer maintain करते हो. So the roots are always submerged. So in the lowland paddy, you are growing the paddy under standing water condition. तो वहां पर क्या है ना, soil में oxygen नहीं होता है. So it is under reduced conditions. So paddy field से भी तुम्हारा greenhouse gases, methane is produced, nitrous oxide is also produced. So what happens under anaerobic conditions, when there is waterlogged conditions, this nitrate will undergo denitrification process, ultimately to produce nitrous oxide and elemental nitrogen. So denitrifying bacteria, it is a biochemical process. So denitrification से क्या होता है? Again this nitrate will be reduced, oxygen will be removed. So या तो nitrous oxide or elemental nitrogen, it will be produced by denitrification process. It is lost again back to the atmosphere. So lightning can also fix atmospheric nitrogen. So lightning is a physical process. यहाँ पर जो nitrogen fixation हो रहा है, ये biological है. Biofertilizers or the nitrogen fixing bacteria, they are fixing the nitrogen. Physical fixation can also happen through lightning. So how your nitrogen is circulating between the biotic and abiotic components, that is your nitrogen cycle. So we will see these steps in detail. हम लोग nitrogen fixation देखेंगे, mineralization process we will see, denitrification process we will see, assimilation we will see. So how these steps are happening individually, we'll break down each step and we will discuss them in detail. So these are the different steps that are present in your nitrogen cycle. So nitrogen fixation, so इसमें both physical and biological we will see. Then ammonification, nitrification, denitrification, and sedimentation. So these are different steps that are happening in the nitrogen cycle. एक एक करके देखते हैं, right? First we will see nitrogen fixation. So see, atmosphere में जो nitrogen है 78% elemental nitrogen, it is non-available form. It is not available to your biological systems. So conversion of free nitrogen of atmosphere into biologically acceptable form or nitrogenous compounds is referred to as nitrogen fixation. So atmospheric nitrogen जो है, elemental nitrogen, it is converted into available form, which can be utilized by the biological organisms. So it can be done through physicochemical or non-biological fixation, lightning for example, and biological nitrogen fixation, that is nitrogen fixing bacteria. They are involved in the fixation of nitrogen. So we'll see these two processes first. Okay, so physical process अगर तुम देखते हो, so what is happening here? So your elemental nitrogen, okay, so when lightning happens, it will combine with oxygen from ozone. Okay, So physicochemical process of nitrogen fixation, the atmospheric nitrogen combines with oxygen during the lightning or electrical discharge. So this energy is sufficient to combine these two. So you have nitric oxide which is formed. So elemental nitrogen and oxygen atom, it will combine together due to electric discharge and it will convert into nitric oxide. This nitric oxide again combines with another atom of oxygen to form nitrogen dioxide. This nitrogen dioxide again combines with oxygen. Two molecules of nitrogen dioxide will combine with oxygen to form डाइनाइट्रोजन पेंटॉक्साइड या फिर नाइट्रोजन पेंटॉक्साइड बोल सकते हो. Okay, so this dinitrogen pentoxide, it will dissolve in rainwater, बारिश में. So this is happening, this is in the gaseous stage. Nitrogen pentoxide is in gaseous stage. So ये बारिश में dissolve हो जाता है. So it will dissolve in the water to form nitric acid. This nitric acid in the form of acid rain, simple. नाइट्रिक एसिड तुम्हारा वापस सॉइल में आता है, तो सॉइल में इट विल कंबाइन विद अगेन अदर सॉल्ट्स. So nitric acid will combine with calcium carbonate to form calcium nitrate and carbon dioxide. So it is coming back to the soil in the form of nitric acid. So elemental nitrogen in the atmosphere through lightning, it will convert into dinitrogen pentoxide that will dissolve in the water and come back to the soil in the form of nitric acid. Okay. So during combustion of various types of fuel, or when you burn some material also, then also nitrogen oxides are released. So they again dissolve in water and they will come back. You can also combine nitrogen and hydrogen under high pressure to form ammonia. टेंथ क्लास में पढ़ा होगा, हेबर्स प्रोसेस बोलते हैं इसको. So if you want to synthesize ammonia under high pressure, you can combine nitrogen and hydrogen together. So industrial scale में हम लोग अगर अमोनिया बेस्ड फर्टिलाइजर बनाते हैं तो हेबर्स प्रोसेस के थ्रू वी कैन प्रोड्यूस. Okay, now so that was physicochemical fixation. Then biological nitrogen fixation. Here biological organisms, they are responsible for fixation of nitrogen. For example, यहाँ पर तुम देख सकते हो. So this is a example of rhizobium, which is forming root nodules. So rhizobium, it is a bacteria that forms root nodules, generally legumes. So this rhizobium is associated with legume plants. It will form root nodules in the legumes and help in nitrogen fixation. Okay, so the rhizobium bacteria, it will enter into the root hair. Okay, so this is the infection thread containing bacteria. So the bacteria will enter into the root through the root hair and it will enter into the cortex region of the plant. So in the cortex region, the bacteria will transform into two types. Bacteroids, which will stimulate cell division and help in the formation of nodules, whereas nitrogen, the other form, will be transformed into nitrogen fixing cells. Okay, it will fix the nitrogen. Thick walled, they are thick walled cells which will help in fixing nitrogen. Now, so you can see here the bacteria lives in the root nodules. So root nodules, inside the root nodules, the bacteria, with the help of enzyme called as the nitrogenase, it will fix the elemental nitrogen into ammonia form. So nitrogen is, for example, it is in the form of, suppose this is the enzyme, this is the nitrogen molecule. Okay, so with the help of this enzyme, and also there is another enzyme that is involved, that is called as hydrogenase. Hydrogenase enzyme be involved है इसके अंदर, right? So what happens in stages, bonds will break between the nitrogen atoms and one hydrogen will add. फिर again same hydrogenase enzyme एक और bond break होगा and hydrogen will add. Hydrogenase enzyme will keep on adding hydrogen. In the next step, you will have sorry. So next step will be एक और hydrogen atom add होगा, ठीक है? So one more hydrogen atom will add here. It will be transformed into two ammonia molecules. So two, एक और step में एक और hydrogen add होगा दोनों nitrogens को. So it will become 2NH3. So it will happen in steps. Nitrogenase enzyme is highly sensitive to oxygen. So there is a pigment called as leg hemoglobin which will prevent the oxidation of nitrogenase. So nitrogen के contact में अगर oxygen आएगा तो nitrogenase enzyme denature हो जाएगा, it will not act. So this nitrogenase enzyme has to be protected from oxygen, otherwise it will oxidize and nitrogenase will not work. Okay, so with the help of nitrogenase enzyme, elemental nitrogen will be transformed into ammonia. Okay, this will be transformed into amino acids, and again some of it will be released into the soil. Some amino acids will be released into the soil and it will fix nitrogen into the soil. So biofertilizers, they work in the same manner. यही mechanism, right? So it is carried out by certain prokaryotes, that is some bacteria. So some blue-green algae fix significant amount of nitrogen in the oceans, lakes, and soils. So symbiotic bacteria like your rhizobium, which is inhabiting the root nodules of legumes. Okay, तो ये तो एक है. Again, symbiotic organisms हैं. For example, symbiotic organisms with legumes. So some bacteria, they fix nitrogen with the legumes. Other organisms, they have symbiotic association with larger trees. Okay, so again, some are free living. Some bacteria, they fix the nitrogen without any association with some other plant or other organism. They are free living. So these bacteria, they can fix nitrogen while they are free living or in symbiotic association. For example, जैसे rhizobium का legumes के साथ symbiotic association है, either in symbiotic association or free living. They can be different types. So for example, जैसे तुम्हारा Anabina azole. So azolla is your fern. So Anabina is in symbiotic association with azolla. So they can be used in combination, right? So they can be free living or they can be in association. So for example, अगर free living में देखोगे, Azotobacter, Clostridium, Azospirillum, these are some of the examples of bacteria that are free living and nitrogen fixing. So it can be mutualistic relationship or it can be free living. The bacteria can be free living. So overall reaction, if you see, ammonia will be converted ultimately into ammonium. sorry, nitrogen, elemental nitrogen will be ultimately converted into ammonia, right? 2NH3. Okay, so ultimately the elemental nitrogen which is unavailable is transformed into available form. Okay, so this is nitrogen fixation. Okay, so we have 10 more minutes. Then second step is nitrogen assimilation. So plants, they take up nitrogen, so this ammonia will be transformed into nitrite, that nitrite will be transformed into nitrate, and ultimately plants or bacteria also requires nitrates. बैक्टीरिया भी उसके अंदर अमीनो एसिड्स होंगे, प्रोटीन होंगे. बैक्टीरिया will also require these proteins because they also multiply, they also have cell membranes and everything. So these nitrates are either taken up by the plants or taken up by the bacteria. Okay, so this nitrogen which is present in the soil, it is assimilated or immobilized. So plants or bacteria, they will take up the nitrogen and they will convert into organic form. So inorganic nitrogen in the form of nitrates or nitrites or ammonia is absorbed by the green plants and converted into nitrogenous organic compounds. So plants तो nitrate form में ही absorb करते हैं भाई. Some examples are there. Paddy, which can take up in ammonia form also, but normally plants take up nitrogen nitrate form only. So these nitrates, they are converted into ammonia inside the plants. Plant nitrate तो लेता है. Once the nitrates enter into the plants, again the plant will reduce this nitrate into ammonia. फिर से ये ammonia में convert करता है and then later into amino acids and बाद में protein inside the plant. Okay, for various processes, for synthesis of different enzymes, they require these amino acids, right? So this is assimilation. Plants or bacteria will take up this inorganic form of nitrogen and convert them into organic form, which is called as assimilation or immobilization. Now, when these plants or animals, when they die, again this organic form will add to the soil. ये organic form फिर से inorganic form में convert होता है. So this conversion of organic into inorganic form is called as mineralization. So plants and animals, when they die, whatever nitrogen they have assimilated will go back to the soil. Again, in the soil, this organic nitrogen has to be converted back into inorganic form. इस process को हम लोग बोलते हैं mineralization. Now what happens in mineralization? So proteins and जो भी dead body में waste other nitrogenous material है, it will be converted into amino acids. So microbial decomposition, it will transform proteins and other nitrogenous material into amino acids, amines and urea. So what organisms are there? Bacillus, Pseudomonas, these are the bacteria which convert protein into amino acids, amines and urea. Urea क्या है? NH2CO NH2. Okay, so this is called as aminization. ये पहला step है, aminization. In the second step, which is called as ammonification, ammonia form होता है. So you see these amino acids and amines, ये जो amino acid और amine यहाँ पर produce हुआ है, they will be again decomposed by microorganisms. So again, microbial ammonification, Pseudomonas, Bacillus, they will convert these amine and amino acids into ammonia and alcohol. Some amount of energy is also produced. So ammonification में ammonia बनता है. And these two steps, they are anaerobic. थर्ड स्टेप जो है तुम्हारा नाइट्रिफिकेशन, दिस इज एरोबिक, ऑक्सीजन के प्रेजेंस में होता है. योर अमोनिया विल बी कन्वर्ट इनटू नाइट्राइट by the help of organism nitrosomonas. नाइट्रिफिकेशन और नाइट्रीफाइंग बैक्टीरिया बोलते हैं इसको. नाइट्रिफिकेशन इज द स्टेप, दीज आर नाइट्रीफाइंग बैक्टीरिया. अमोनिया इज कन्वर्ट इनटू नाइट्रेट एंड ऑक्सीजन की प्रेजेंस में हो रहा है, ये ऑक्सीजन ऐड हो रहा है. देखो यहां पर हाइड्रोजन इज रिमूव्ड एंड ऑक्सीजन इज एडेड, सो एरोबिक. देन नाइट्राइट जो है वो नाइट्रेट में कन्वर्ट हो रहा है. सो दिस सेकंड स्टेप इज the microbe which is involved in the second step is called as nitrobacter. In the first step it is nitrosomonas, second step it is nitrobacter. So इस conversion के लिए जो optimum pH है, the soil pH should be 6.5 to 7.5 and optimum temperature should be around 30 to 35 for this nitrification to happen. So this is how mineralization happens, organic form से inorganic form में जो convert हो रहा है. Now under reduced conditions मैंने बोला denitrification भी होता है. सो जो नाइट्रेट फॉर्म में है नाइट्रोजन, इट विल बी ट्रांसफॉर्म्ड इनटू गैसियस फॉर्म. सो और एलिमेंटल नाइट्रोजन, नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड और एलिमेंटल नाइट्रोजन, नंबर ऑफ ऑक्सीजन इज रिड्यूसिंग, ऑक्सीजन निकल रहा है यानी रिडक्शन हो रहा है. सो हियर द एंजाइम विच इज इन्वॉल्व इज नाइट्रेट रिडक्टेज. So again this is a biochemical process, so bacteria are involved here. So nitrate, यहाँ पर ऑक्सीजन निकल रहा है, ऑक्सीजन इज रिमूव्ड, विल बी कन्वर्टेड टू नाइट्राइट. देन नाइट्राइट अगेन ऑक्सीजन इज रिमूव्ड टू नाइट्रिक ऑक्साइड, अगेन oxygen is removed to form nitrous oxide and ultimately to elemental nitrogen. So these are gaseous forms, they will be lost into the atmosphere. So nitrates may change to gaseous form in the absence of air or by poor drainage. जहां पर भी waterlogged condition होगा वहां पर nitrous oxide produce होता है. So anaerobic bacteria are involved here. So thiobacillus denitrificans, Micrococcus denitrificans, Serratia, Achromobacter, these are some of the examples. So denitrification process where nitrogen will be lost from the soil into the atmosphere. Sedimentation is the last step. So sedimentation में क्या होता है? Some of the nitrogen will be leached and it will react with other chemical compounds and fixed in the rocks. So nitrates of the soil are washed down to the sea or leached deep into the earth along with percolating water. या तो leach हो सकता है या फिर वो run off water के साथ it can go into the sea. So nitrates thus lost from the soil surface are locked up in the rocks. This is called as sedimentation of nitrogen. Again they will be exposed after some time, but temporarily they will be out of circulation. So thus large part of nitrogen is fixed and stored in the plants, animals and microbes. Immobilization हो रहा है. Okay. So nitrogen leaves the living system in the same amount it is taken from the atmosphere. So cycling, जितना लिया है उतना वापस atmosphere में चले जाता है. So disruption of nitrogen cycle can be disrupted. कैसे? अगर तुम indiscriminate application of chemical fertilizer करोगे, so if you apply a lot of fertilizer, some of it will be lost in the form of nitrous oxide entering into the atmosphere. Nitrous oxide क्या है? Greenhouse gas है. So you are disrupting the nitrogen cycle by application of fertilizers by combustion of fossil fuels. So another culprit is fossil fuels, which releases nitric oxide into the air that combine with water to form nitric acid. As acid rain, it will come back. Volcanic eruptions also add significant amount of oxides of nitrogen and sulfur. So these are the mechanisms through which nitrogen cycle can be disrupted. Okay. So nitrogen cycle important है, इसलिए एग्जाम में भी आता है because it is related to climate change. So let us see the question. 2013 का क्वेश्चन है, which of the following adds or add nitrogen to the soil? Soil में नाइट्रोजन ऐड होता है इस प्रोसेस से. Which of the following process? So first, excretion of urea by animals. Yes, we know this. Cattle जब urinate करता है तो this urea will be converted into ammonia. Ammonia will be converted to nitrite, then to nitrate. तो soil में add हो रहा है nitrogen. This is a correct option. Then death of vegetation. Yes, ये भी correct है. Organic matter add होता है soil में. Organic matter again mineralization process, right? Ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, ये भी correct process है. Yes, this also adds nitrogen to the soil. थर्ड ऑप्शन देखो, I mean सेकंड ऑप्शन देखो, बर्निंग ऑफ कोल बाय मैन. ये डायरेक्टली सॉइल में ऐड नहीं कर रहा है, बिकॉज जो एश है, एश ऑफ कोल, इट डज नॉट कंटेन सिग्निफिकेंट नाइट्रोजन नहीं होता है इसमें. एश ऑफ कोल डज नॉट हैव हायर क्वांटिटी ऑफ नाइट्रोजन, नेग्लिजिबल. इट डज नॉट ऐड एनी नाइट्रोजन. हाँ, इनडायरेक्टली इट कैन ऐड नाइट्रोजन, डायरेक्टली तो ऐड नहीं करता है. सो इट इज not directly affecting the soil nitrogen levels. Burning of coal, it releases nitrogen oxides into atmosphere. Nitrogen oxides atmosphere में release करता है, which can come back as nitric acid into the soil. Indirectly it can come back, but directly soil में add होता है क्या nitrogen? No. Burning of coal, जो भी ash produce होता है, it does not have nitrogen, so it is not adding nitrogen directly to the soil. Indirectly, yes. Indirectly it does add, because first ये एटमॉस्फेयर में जाता है, एटमॉस्फेयर में वाटर के साथ रिएक्ट करेगा, फिर नाइट्रिक एसिड के फॉर्म में, फिर सॉइल में आएगा. इनडायरेक्टली ओके, इट डज ऐड, बट डायरेक्टली तो ऐड नहीं करता है. सो इट इज नॉट डायरेक्टली एडिंग एनी नाइट्रोजन टू द सॉइल. सो इनडायरेक्टली लिंक है, बट डायरेक्ट तो नहीं है. तो सेकंड ऑप्शन इज रॉन्ग. फर्स्ट एंड थर्ड ओनली. समझ में आए? दिस इज वेरी सिंपल, राइट? डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन है. We will see one more question and we will end the session here. ये समझ में आया? डायरेक्टली तो एश कोल का जो रेसिड्यू बच जाता है वो तो ऐड नहीं करता है नाइट्रोजन. ओके, सो देयर वाज अनदर क्वेश्चन इन 2025. सो यस, प्लीज try to answer this. What can be the impact of excess or inappropriate use of nitrogen fertilizers in agriculture? So excess fertilizer डालोगे तो नाइट्रोजन साइकिल डिसरप्ट होता है बोल के बोला है. So what can be the result if you add nitrogen, excess nitrogen, if you dump excess nitrogenous fertilizer to the soil, what will be the result? So let us try to directly, अगर पता नहीं है तो eliminate कर सकते हैं, like. So first let us see this option second. So it increases the acidity of the soil, right? So there are some fertilizers. Yes, answer is correct 2 and 3. But let us discuss this. There are some fertilizers like ammonium sulfate. जब तुम इसको ऐड करोगे सॉइल में, it increases the soil acidity. It makes the soil more acidic. Okay. Then if you have excess nitrates in the soil, third option देखो. So ammonium sulfate ना पैडी में बहुत यूज करते हैं. So it can turn the soil acidic. Then leaching of nitrate to the groundwater can happen. So nitrate अगर तुम्हारा soil में है, excess nitrate, nitrates are readily soluble. So with the percolating water they can leach and they can go to groundwater. So groundwater pollution हो सकता है भाई इससे. There is a disease called as methemoglobinemia, blue baby syndrome. So the children, their skin turns blue because oxygen carry नहीं कर पाता है hemoglobin, so their body turns blue because of nitrate pollution. So groundwater can be polluted, excess nitrates अगर हैं. So excess irrigation दोगे या बारिश का पानी ज्यादा होता है तो it can leach to the groundwater and pollute the groundwater. So leaching of nitrate to the groundwater can occur. ये दोनों correct option है. Now let us see the first one. प्रोलिफरेशन ऑफ नाइट्रोजन फिक्सिंग माइक्रोऑर्गेनिजम्स इन द सॉइल कैन अकर, यानी नाइट्रोजन फिक्सिंग बैक्टीरिया जो है वो उसका पॉपुलेशन बढ़ जाएगा या फिर उसका डाइवर्सिटी बढ़ जाएगा. प्रोलिफरेशन मींस द पॉपुलेशन और द नंबर इंक्रीजेस. दिस इज रॉन्ग स्टेटमेंट. क्यों? सो मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द बैक्टीरिया दे प्रिफर pH ऑफ 6.5 to 7. न्यूट्रल pH प्रिफर करते हैं. बैक्टीरिया they love neutral pH or slightly alkaline pH. Fungus it survives better at acidic pH. फंगस के लिए 5.5 या 5.5 से नीचे pH होगा तो फंगस कैन सर्वाइव अंडर दोस कंडीशंस वेरी वेल. बैक्टीरिया एसिडिक कंडीशंस में ज्यादा सर्वाइव नहीं कर पाता है. इट प्रिफर्स आइदर न्यूट्रल और स्लाइटली अल्कलाइन कंडीशंस. सो जब तुम फर्टिलाइजर डालोगे तो क्या होता है, सॉइल एसिडिक बन जाएगा. सो व्हाट विल हैपन व्हेन इट टर्न्स एसिडिक? बैक्टीरिया के लिए conditions will not be favorable. So population or the diversity of the soil microflora or the bacteria will reduce. Increase नहीं होता, उल्टा बोल रहे हैं यहाँ पर. So it will reduce. Now you, I mean explanation समझ में आया तुमको? Now last, this will be over. Then we'll do carbon cycle in the next class. So consider the following statements. ये तुम practice के लिए है, ये आंसर करके बताओ मुझे क्या आंसर इसका. So first option, इनमें से कौन सा करेक्ट आंसर है बताओ. So organisms which convert ammonia to nitrate is called as nitrifying bacteria. Obviously, it is true. Nitrosomonas and Nitrobacter, these are called as nitrifying bacteria. Nitrogen fixation is carried out by bacteria and fungi. भाई साहब फंगस नहीं करता है, बैक्टीरिया करता है. This is wrong. So this statement is wrong. Yes, you are correct, Ayush. So third, some bacteria break down ammonia to nitrite and to nitrate. हाँ, nitrifying bacteria सारे नहीं होते, कुछ होते हैं, some bacteria. So 1 and 3 only. So this is true. Nitrogen cycle समझ में आया, different steps. So nitrogen cycle is the most important among all the biogeochemical cycles. So all right, so that will be all for today. We'll meet in the next class. We'll meet on Monday. हम लोग carbon cycle and hydrological cycle will finish. This is very small, आधा घंटा लगेगा. Then we will 15 minutes, not half an hour also. Then we will go to biodiversity. So we will start a new chapter, that is biodiversity or conservation of biodiversity, from Monday. Okay, thank you.